I'd love to not be plagued by terrifying images whenever I leave my house, but c'est la vie.
Welcome to the Coven Slumber Party with Rae of Black Heart Arts and Sarah of Calling Corners, where we break down and geek out over the witchy, magical, mystical media of the 80s, 90s, and more, and try and fill the video store-shaped holes in our hearts. You are listening to episode 10 of the CSP podcast. I'm Sarah of Calling Corners.
Oh, and I'm Rae of Black Heart Arts.
That was so cute. I love it.
Just playing with my cat.
Aww. If this is your first slumber party, welcome to the Coven. And if you've been here before, you know the drill. Grab your pizza, your tarot, your VHS, and tell your mom you're spending the night. We're available on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and YouTube. If you can and feel like it, download, subscribe, review. It all supports the show. And we're always so blown away and so grateful. You could be doing anything with your time, and you're here with us, and we definitely feel that energy and appreciate it more than we can say. If you have any comments, questions, or movie topic suggestions, email us at thecovenslumberparty@gmail.com. So now, let's party like it's 1999. You know, when we were 14.
So hip and cool.
Oh, yeah.
How are you doing?
I've had a really weird 2 weeks. It's been interesting. Yeah. It'll be fine. Anyway.
I saw the hood went up.
Yeah, my depression hoodie. You can tell.
I was like, oh no. I want to mend your heart with pies and cookies.
Thank you.
And so does Etta.
Oh.
She's gonna be such a pill right now.
So how about you? What have you been up to since we last talked?
Just LIVIN, trying to get through the days. My patience is like non-existent right now. Mm-hmm. So some days are a little taxing.
Right.
But for the most part, it's been okay. Just trying to like keep my days busy and like moving and going and not like falling asleep at 7:30 every day as I yawn doing a podcast with you.
No, you gotta stay up. You gotta do it.
But it's like, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird, and it's starting to get to the point where like I'm like actually feel like pregnant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but other than that, it's pretty okay.
Your Ostara stuff is so killer.
Oh, thank you.
Really
cool,
solid.
Yay.
I love the packaging. So good.
It just took me a month longer than I thought to get that done, so thanks for noticing.
That's always the way. That's always the way.
Yeah, I can't do anything for the same amount of time that I used to, so like sitting at a computer and designing is like, I max out at like an hour or two, and I'm like, I gotta move, do something else, or like shut down or have a nap or a snack. I can't be the asshole that stays up for 32 hours anymore.
So we're going from probably the most tone-deaf and disastrous marketing campaign from last episode to one that had possibly the most nuanced, brilliant, unsuspecting, successful campaigns of all time, arguably, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Back in 1999, when the internet was shiny and we were not jaded by life, an indie horror film captured our imagination and made us all not only believe in ghost witches in the woods, but that any of us could make one hell of a film if we have the creativity and drive, without even a tripod. 1999's The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, I was so pumped to do this after Jennifer's Body, because it's like total polar opposites of marketing, strategy, a win and a loss.
Total win, man. I thought it was real. I wasn't big, like I wasn't on the internet much. Like we didn't internet back then, really.
Yeah.
So when the few times you got online and you heard about it, you go to the website and it just looked, everything checked out, like to my 14-year-old brain. Mm-hmm. And then I saw it in the theater with my friend and my mom, and I just was horrified because I was like, this shit is real.
I don't think I always knew it was fake. Like, I do think in my gut, I thought for like a really long time it was real, but I never said it to anybody. Right. You know, I was like, no, it's not real. But in my head, I was like, oh my God, this is probably real. But it got spoiled probably like, I don't know, 6 months after it like started premiering or like it was everywhere. About 6 months later, I'd say probably everyone kind of like heard it was like, oh no. They were on like the cover of Rolling Stone or something, and they did the interviews, and you're like, oh, they're not. Oh, they're alive. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, still knowing that it was fake, watching it at home, I was like still creeped.
Yeah. I mean, it's very subtle in how it well, before we get into that, you want to tell us what it's about?
I'll tell you what IMDb says it's about. 3 film students vanish after traveling into a Maryland forest to film a documentary on the local Blair Witch legend, leaving only their footage behind. Which is true. There's not a lot going on in this movie, you know? Like,
yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. Holy shit, IMDb only has 6.5 out of 10. Feel like that's not right.
Where should we start with this?
I have no idea. I don't know. It's hard to talk about, I feel like, because it's been around for so long. It's gotten to the point where like there are so many like stories about it and info and behind the scenes and stuff like that. Everybody's heard. And also there was like, that was like a thing. It was like gossip rumor mill when it came out too. Everyone was like making up stuff. It was a little gossip mill being like, well, I heard this and I heard this. And I feel like it's been like that for like 15 years.
Yeah.
But it's shifted from weird, is it real, is it not real stuff to like how the actors were treated, how the writing happened, and like because it became like such a cultural phenomenon. Like it's huge. It's had a huge impact when it comes to like producing movies. I don't know. It's just talked about in like a way that it's mythologized.
Well, it's yeah, that's fair, but I totally know what you're saying. It's kind of an interesting parallel to, in my opinion, like spells and stuff. You know, it's like this whole idea of like if you put it out enough times in the universe, it sort of like will manifest itself. When you amplify that with all the people that saw the film or participated in like the lore, unsuspectingly or knowingly that it was not real at the time, you kind of end up with this thing that even if people swear up and down is fiction, you kind of end up with this oddly like spectral non-fiction.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Yeah.
Totally. That's why I feel like it's a special movie for that reason. I wanted to see what Rotten Tomatoes has to say about it.
Yeah, let us know. Or let us all know.
I'll let you know. 86%. 86%. I don't know what accent that was.
An excited one.
Whoa. 86%, but the audience score is only 56%.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the low audience rating.
I actually find it way creepier that you don't see anything in this movie. Like you do see stuff.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you do see creepy shit, but you don't see like an entity. You don't see like the Blair Witch or any of the stuff that like you in your head would think that you're gonna see. And I find that way f***ing creepier.
I do too.
Yeah.
I would love to like dive into that. It is creepier, and I actually like it's all the power of suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
And we're filling in our own narrative.
See, like that is like, I think we've talked about it before, where we both have acknowledged that what we make up in our head is way scarier than what we see or in movies and stuff. Like I remember you saying once, here is like you hear a sound that's like it's like a door opening or something, or like a weird scratch, and you're like, oh, obviously there's like a woman on my ceiling being creepy. And we're like,
yes,
oh yeah, if I see some lights, it's like aliens, you know.
We totally did talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. It's like I feel like I know what's terrifying to me, and it's so therefore like I'm the author of the most terrifying shit because I fill in the gaps knowing what absolutely terrifies me. So in a scene like this or something like the Blair Witch is like 100% the most terrifying thing.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head with that. It's like they're funneling this vagueness for you to program whatever your darkness holds deepest, like.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally. Because even in that sense, like even you bringing up that conversation that we had where I said the noise is a woman crawling on my ceiling, you said the lights are aliens. It's like, would the woman on the ceiling be your first thought? No, because you would have said it. It was my first thought. Yours was aliens. So it's like we're already going through different like funnels and filters.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that's why I found all of it to still be unnerving, even though I knew it was like fake actual movie, not a documentary. I was like, they're really screaming though. Because they are really screaming. Totally. They're terrified in the woods in the dark, not knowing what's going on. So yeah.
No, fair. It's totally fair. Because we never see in the original Blair Witch Project, we never see the Blair Witch. Mm-hmm. It was the same like with Jaws. Why Jaws was so compelling.
Exactly.
We until the very end climax kind of thing, we do not see that shark really, so we get to decide what it looks like in our brain, and that's intense.
And just like the fin of that shark, like in my mind it doesn't matter what scientists would say to be like, actually the shark can't be 200 feet long, but I'm like, yeah, it can, and it's just that much sticking out, but you like have no idea how big that terror is underneath.
You don't.
I must really hate myself to like fill in the blanks so vividly for when I watch movies like this. Like,
no, I don't think, you know what? Honestly, I do not think you do. Because I wrote in my notes here, and I'll say something else too about it. It's such filling in your own narrative, such a powerful tool with writing. We do it with the villain here, just like we did for Jaws, and we also do it in our everyday lives. Stories are usually what we live for. It's what I definitely live for. And stories are super powerful. But the narrative you fill in can absolutely destroy you, at least for a little while, which is what I'm experiencing now.
I feel you there. I've come to learn that my overthinking isn't necessarily overthinking, but also perhaps overfeeling as well. Talking to people about certain things lately, and I think it was my mom that said it to me. She was just like, "What I think she even said, "Wow." She was like, "Wow, you feel a lot more than I do." And I was like, I don't know fully what that means, but it doesn't sound good for me.
It sounds like I want to have whatever your mom has, because man. Right? But going back to the power of suggestion and imagination and stuff like that, I feel like talking about this as a found footage horror movie, and that sort of blowing up and becoming a huge thing, the found footage genre after this flick. It was just such an extraordinary genre, but one that is often done poorly, or forgets that it's found footage, or forgets the like indie power of itself, and like then falls back on, regular Hollywood crutches.
Gonna be honest, I'm not a huge found footage fan for that reason. A lot of the time it's like too polished, it's too produced, stylized, it's like, for me, basically found footage movies, it's like it's a documentary. You're putting together a documentary.
Yeah.
So when I see stuff that just doesn't compute to me, I completely get taken out of it, and I'm just like, this is bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
But to be fair, I haven't watched a lot of found footage movies. Like, I've tried and stopped. I guess the Paranormal Activity ones are really good, but I've never watched it because I was a huge asshole for most of my life, and when I saw the trailer I was like, oh, Blair Witch wannabe, bleh, and like never watched.
Yeah, I watched the Paranormal, I watched the first one, right? And I actually pulled a quote from the director, Oren Peli, because of course Paranormal Activity was successful in a lot of the same ways that Blair Witch was successful. And Peli said, if someone decides to do it honestly and has a great idea, it can always be effective. And I mean, it's a simple sentence, and it's like simplistic, but it really hit me. Like, the quote really hit me. Because it made me realize that the reason that, for me, I feel that the genre can be so successful is it has this correct alchemy of two factors, really, which the first one is intimacy, because it's like, you're looking at normal people. They're people that you could be standing in line with at the grocery store. They're regular folks. Like, they're basically like your buds. They're somebody you'd have over to have pizza. like on a Friday or something. And then the second is a desire to believe, like, because for me, watching stuff like Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch, it gives you this sense of play, which is so important to me. Even as like somebody who's 35, I never grew out of that, right? Whether it's like scaring yourself or something more goofy. I made some notes here. I can remember me and my friends like in junior high, and even I think a little bit in high school, we would have like alter egos, and like we'd be all hanging out at somebody's house, and then suddenly one person would like start responding in their alter ego, and all of us would kind of follow suit, and the rest of the evening would be like us in this, like, what would you call it now? Like kind of like a LARP almost. Did you know what I mean? But like unintentional. It was just kind of us doing it. Another thing I thought of in the same vein, like that sense of play. Do you remember?
Shit, yeah.
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 Me and him and a couple other people that were like in this subdivision and like around us locally, we would sneak out of our house at night on the weekends, and we would do this thing called Action Squad. We called ourselves Action Squad, and we just like around and go and try and find adventures at like 12 a.m. when we were kids. It was fun and exciting, and we called it Action Squad.
I love that.
Right? And
it's
like
so pure.
It's so pure. And like I remember like walking up to visit those guys like at his house, and we'd run by this car that was for sale, but we would like pretend that it was going to come alive, like the death car in the movie. I think that's also called Death Car. So we'd have to run past it, like just these things. And it's like that age range is kind of like a little too old for what you'd imagine, but like that sense of play I feel like you need. And I feel like that plus the intimacy of the characters is why this genre like resonates so well when it's done correctly.
Yeah, I like. Oh, that's making me feel really nice. Little stories and stuff.
But also, they didn't use a soundtrack, and they used the real actors' names. So
yeah,
that also.
They did a lot of stuff that I thought like worked perfectly in this movie. Like the fact they didn't film anything else. Like they just used the quote found footage unquote. So it did actually feel real because it was all shot by the three of them. So it just like it added another layer of like authenticity and like.
Yeah, it totally did. In fact, so much so. There's a quote in did you see the Vice article? There was a Vice article on this. They were interviewing the characters and Josh Leonard. They were talking about that, how they had to shoot it themselves, the actors, and they had to get trained in the equipment. And you know that scene where he's bickering with Heather in the car about the focus?
Yes.
He's this is the quote. I'll just read it. But even that didn't save me time from screwing up a bunch of footage. He's talking about practicing. That whole conversation in the movie about the feet versus meters after we left Mary Brown's house, that was real. That was me realizing I'd screwed up the calculations for the measurements, and the footage was probably going to be out of focus.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love how this movie was directed, though. Like, just they had to shoot it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, to go back to what I was saying earlier, how there's just been, like, layers and layers and layers of lore and I don't even know what's real and what's not at this point. Like, the actors were only paid $1,000 a day, and that was it. But then some reports are like they got paid more after like the movie was successful and stuff. They got paid like $300,000 a piece or something or whatever. Because like I never thought of it before until I watched it for this with this and this mind frame where I was like, man, I hope they got paid a decent amount because they were acting under ridiculous circumstances and also had to actually make the movie. Like they made the movie.
Yes because it was all improvised. Yeah
Which is so impressive to me. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Once actually digging in and finding out, I'm gonna assume some of it is correct, what they had to endure to film this shit, they're good improv actors. Because I would have been done. I would have shut down.
Yeah, because they were like cold and wet and they didn't really know where they were going. It was they were guided by the directors using GPS, which took them to like milk crates of where their camp spot was.
And, like, they had little notes, individual notes, I guess, like, as to what their character would be doing and what to let other characters know and what not, what to keep secret and stuff like that. I have to say, like, I do really enjoy this movie. It's like the only found footage movie that I've watched that I've liked. Like,
right.
I think I'm sure I've watched like other parts of other ones, but like the only one I know for sure I've watched all the way through and I hated was Cannibal Holocaust.
See, I will never watch Cannibal Holocaust.
I watched it once and I fucking hated it.
Yeah.
They just straight up kill a giant old tortoise.
Yeah, I've seen some movies like that too. Yeah.
I know it was 1980 and things were different and whatever, but like watching that, like, I didn't give a shit about any of the people or whatever because I was like, this is all fake. But I was like, oh no, they're straight up killing that tortoise. That's real.
Yeah.
And I was like, this, like, all of you, burn it.
Yeah,
Ugh.
burn it, walk away.
Yeah.
I know.
So that probably does have a lingering bad taste in my mouth when it comes to this genre, but
yeah, there's definitely a few movies that I have on my list that I just won't ever see. Ever. And that's definitely on one of them for me.
Yeah, you're not missing anything.
Yeah, but one of them also is Tusk, which is probably dumb.
No, I've never watched it.
No, neither have I. I'm never gonna watch it.
Oh, I totally forgot about that movie.
I think about that movie sometimes, and I always regret it.
I've also never watched the Human Centipede movie.
Same. I'll never watch those either.
I don't think I need to.
No, I don't either. Yeah. I don't think it'll enrich my life. There's two movies that I watched. I didn't watch them accidentally, but I didn't realize like the three movies. The intensity of like how much they were going to damage me, and that was Old Boy. Did you ever watch that?
Nope. Part of me is like, oh, just do it. It's probably a great movie. But I'm like, I know the plot and I don't want to.
I didn't know the plot before I watched it, so that was super great. There's one, The Loved Ones. Have you ever seen that?
No, that's not familiar.
It's like
The Loved Ones?
Yeah, it was an indie movie. I'm going to say it came out in like the early to mid 2000s. One of the guys from like Twilight or something like that is in it. It's about a girl who's like kind of a loser. She's like a cute loser, you know, like how they usually are in movies.
Yeah.
And she asks this boy out on a date. She asks this guy out on or to the prom, sorry, and he turns her down because he has a girlfriend. And he gets kidnapped by her father and ends up throwing a prom for his daughter in the house with him. And it turns out as you go along that that's not the first prom that's happened to that girl's house, and that's definitely not the first prom date that she's had there. And it is hard to get through, man. Hard to get through.
I feel like I've seen this on lists and stuff.
You might have. I didn't know what I was really in for. I just dug it because the poster's so badass. It's like the pretty like girl on the front. It's all pink and kind of scary, but also kind of cute. And
oh, she has like a drill in her hand.
Yeah.
Prom night can be torture.
Yeah.
Waka waka.
So that one, and then the last one is Martyrs. I didn't know what Martyrs was, and I watched that, and I was just like, well, I'm a different woman than I was an hour and 30 minutes ago. Great.
Is it that bad?
It's really, for me, it really was that bad. Okay. I know people that watch it and are like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And I'm like, are you one of those people that gets a tattoo and is like, didn't hurt? Because I feel like you are.
Liars. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I do say tattoos don't hurt that badly. But like when people are like, oh, that must have hurt. I'm like, well, not really. Like some do, but like.
Depends on the spot, I guess. Yeah.
I'll be honest. And I'm like, this was hell. Anything like around ditches and joints? No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, to be honest, the last 2 tattoos I got didn't super hurt, but there was like a weird sensation like I had on my like side here. And like when they were tattooing it, I could feel like this weird pulsing specifically in my like elbow.
Yeah. When stuff like that happens, I'm like, oh, acupuncture's real, man. Like whenever stuff like that happens, I'm like, how is that connected to my ear?
Yeah.
What?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I've never watched The Loved Ones, but I do think it was on a list I watched. And Martyrs I've never seen. It was on a list that I had to watch, but maybe I won't watch it.
So Martyrs is about these 2 best friends. I won't give away the ending, but just to give you some sort of context, is like it's about these 2 best friends, and one of them is supporting the other one because she clearly dealt with the trauma, though she doesn't know what it was. And so she goes to revisit like the place of the trauma, which was this like this house, suburban house, real nice. And the friend goes in. And the other friend is assuming she's going in to confront the people or kind of make some sort of amends or heal herself. And she goes in and just shoots the people. and you're like, oh, this is really intense. But then there's a secret layer under the house and shit starts to get really intense and really weird. And there's like this ghost as well, which is terrifying, but then it's like also very gory, and it's like the whole reason that there's like this weird place under the house and there's weird people under the house is very terrifying. It's very terrifying. Yeah.
I don't know if I need that right now in my life.
It's a lot. It hits on like, you know, all this weird stuff, and like also there's this whole religious aspect that's this whole angle of religion, which is just obviously it's called Martyrs, I guess that makes sense, but like it's if you're experiencing any sort of existential crisis, even at a very small level, wait till that passes if you have any interest in watching this movie.
Yeah, you're not selling me on it. That's fine though.
Yeah, I watched it with one of my ex-boyfriends, and we didn't know what we were in for, and we finished watching it. At the end of the movie, we like couldn't talk or look at each other.
Yeah, one of those movies where you're just like, I'll take it back. No.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh, okay, sweet segue.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I did, because I was looking up other found footage movies that were like successful or people care about or whatever.
Oh, I'm interested in that for sure.
And there's one called The Last Broadcast that I want to watch. Have you ever?
No.
It actually came out a year before the Blair Witch, so 1998. And it's about a reporter that goes missing while looking for the Jersey Devil, which...
Oh, that's up my alley.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm adding that to my watch list. But also I wanted to ask, that movie Creep that you like, would you consider it a found footage film?
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, because it was on a list, and I was like, well, shit, maybe this is an excuse for me to watch it finally.
I didn't even think about Creep. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Oh, that is honestly, that's probably my favorite found footage movie. It is so good. And Mark Duplass is just like an adorable angel.
Oh, he's so great.
Right?
What did I watch again the other day? I watched it a long time ago and rewatched it while eating a grilled cheese sandwich. The Safety Not Guaranteed.
Okay.
He thinks that, like, he puts an ad in the paper looking for someone to travel back in time with him.
Yes.
It's so cute.
He does adorable movies. I mean, Creep is scary, but like he's a precious angel.
I love him.
Me too.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna watch those two, and then probably not care as much about the Blair Witch. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Creep is fantastic. And you're right, it's a found footage movie. I did not. I feel like such a terrible detective. Like. Did not even think about that movie once during the research for this.
No, you actually did. You, again, do a lot of actual research, and I look up facts, and then I read stuff about how Mike sucks. Those are my notes.
Mike sucks is your notes.
Yeah. Or the line from Josh, why was all this blue jelly shit just all over my shit?
I love that line, actually.
It was so good.
That's my favorite line in the movie.
Yep. And he's like, no, it's water. And he's like, no, it's like slime. Ugh. So good.
Yes.
So good.
I can just another quick like aside about slime. I love the whole concept of like supernatural slime and ectoplasm and just like the history of it. It is so cool.
I like whenever I hear ectoplasm, I just think of Bill Murray trying to collect it in Ghostbusters. Aw, ectoplasm.
I should watch Ghostbusters. That would be yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I always forget how much like I truly, truly love that movie until I start watching it, and then I'm just like, this is a brilliant movie. Like,
right.
I was having a bad day. It was probably a couple years ago now. I was having like a really like kind of sour bad day, and Tall Guy came in and he could like tell I wasn't having a time. He was like, I'm gonna put a movie in for you. And he put it in, and within like 2 seconds before anything came up on the screen, there's like, it's a very specific, distinct sound to the beginning of Ghostbusters. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
He was like, do you even know what this is? I was like, yeah, thank you. And then I just was like, I was fixed almost. I was like, I'm good.
You know what though? It's people that get you. It's like knowing the importance of when I say, I think about it more than I think about Pumpkinette. You know what that means.
Yes.
People that get you are important.
Very important. Special beasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Just quickly, because now you opened this Pandora's box of like found footage awesome movies that I just remembered. You have to watch this one. I think it's on Tubi, actually.
Oh, Tubi.
The Conspiracy, it's called. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Oh my god. That sounds so dramatic. I explain this movie often as the scariest movie I've ever seen. Now,
oh shit.
It is. But of course, now going back to like, we filter things through our own fears, right? So it might not be the scariest movie you've ever seen. I describe it as Blair Witch meets Lord of the Flies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is so scary. Yeah. It's yeah, and it's a found footage movie too. And I was watching it at when I was at somebody's house who I was dating many years ago, and I was just up alone at night and it just came on and I was like, oh, this seems interesting, and I watched it and it just shook me to my core.
It's on my list now. Yeah. I'm actually feeling good. I'm actually going back and watching the things we talk about on the list. So
that's awesome.
I watched Scare Me, and I watched which is just like still so good. I gave it like it was 2 years ago now that like Tall Guy and I were trying to watch like a spooky movie every day for October and rating it and stuff, and like I was giving it like 0 to 5 pumpkins.
Oh, that's so cute. I love it.
The rating.
Yeah.
So we still use that rating now. So like after I watched Scare Me, he was like, how many pumpkins? And I was like, 5. He was like, what? Because I've never given anything 5 pumpkins before. He was like, seriously? I was like, that's pretty intense. And then, of course, I overthink. And I'm like, is there even such a thing as a 5 pumpkin movie? So I'm like, 4.5.
Totally. But, like, do you see what I mean, though? Like, it's so special. It's just, like, I can't really even explain it. It's just, like...
I think when I texted you, I was like, it's like that special feeling that you got when you went to like True Home Video, Blockbuster, and you like just took a chance, rolled the dice, and got this movie, and you're like, this is like one of the best things that's ever been made in the world ever.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Secret success.
Yes, exactly. It's like it's like you found like this special thing that you're just like, it's like a secret, like you're just harnessing. You're just like, oh, this is just mine, and I'm gonna covet it.
Well, it's the same, like I feel like it's probably not the same entirely level wise now, but like, do you remember the movie Slither?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, this is special and amazing, and like, yes, I expected it to be like widely popular and everyone talked about it and loved it, and it's like it's like, it's a movie that came out. I'm like, oh, it was like such a good movie.
Doesn't it kind of remind... I mean, there's a lot going on in Slither, for sure, but, like, doesn't it, at its core, kind of remind you of Night of the Creeps?
I don't think I've ever watched Night of the Creeps. I feel like maybe I've watched part of it.
Yeah, you probably watched part of it. I'm sure you have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't. So I should. Night of the Creeps going on the list. Da-da-da-da. I'd like if this gets in the podcast. Sorry, I ruin things, but I just liked at the end of Slither where like everyone's just dead. Like, you know. Like, you know, in some movies, it's like, oh, the spell was reversed, or like the main brain alien is dead, so everyone's fine, or whatever. It's like, no, just the town is dead.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, just
what's
so good.
I know. Which one is the zombie movie where like they just explode the town to get rid of the problem?
Oh, they nuke it, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I want to say it's like Return of the Living Dead 2 or something.
I think so. I want to see if I can identify it by the cover. Yeah, it's part 2. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
If we're wrong, someone should email us.
Also, just... yeah, they should email us just because that would be great to get mail too.
Yeah. I was going to say, please.
Please email us.
Sure.
Also, might be a hot take. Return of the Living Dead 3 or Night of the Living Dead 3? Which one is it? Return of the Living Dead 3?
Return of the Living Dead 3.
One of the greatest love stories ever told.
I'm gonna just leave that there. This is Coleman's hot take. Hot take.
Hot take.
I feel like you have a hot take in every episode where you're like, I'm just gonna say this. Deal with it.
Oh shit.
See, I'm more traditional. I'd go with like a Harold and Maude or something personally, but
copy that.
That's just where I am right now, you know.
That's fair.
But I want to know if other people share your feels.
I would love to know that.
That would make me feel really happy.
Yeah. Does anyone else think it's Return? Am I saying that right? It's Return of the Living Dead 3. You know the one I'm talking about. The love story.
Yeah, the babe.
Yeah.
Babe Blades.
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets, isn't it like, she accidentally gets like all.
Yeah,
Isn't she dating a guy that his dad's like
works at the facility where there's zombies? Yeah.
And she just gets like sexy and she's kind of, I don't know. I'll have to rewatch it again.
So let's get back on track here with Blair Witch. Okay. So let's get into Heather Donahue. Okay. So I guess she was kind of ultimately unknown prior to this movie because they did choose specifically to cast unknown actors.
And non-union actors.
It's the only way you're going to be able to ration their food and
pull most of the shit off.
Yeah. Before I dive too deep into her, very intriguing. Did you see that whole thing about the casting process?
I think, the improv part of it.
Yeah, to test their improv. So it was so good.
I would have definitely not been cast for this movie. Because if I walked in a room, someone was like, what was it? It's like this is your parole meeting, basically, where the officers that can like, you've been in jail for 8 years. And
yeah, it was like you've served a certain amount of time of a 20-year murder sentence. Walk in and tell us why you should be released. What would you have said?
I would have been like, pardon? And like, I probably would have had papers in my hands and like made them tight and been like,
just be like, I'll see myself out.
I probably would have just started quoting like Raising Arizona or something.
That's good.
I would not have been cast.
No, nor would I. But they were originally going to go with 3 guys. They went with Heather because she said, I probably shouldn't be released. And it freaked them out.
And that's another thing. When I read that, I was like, yeah, that's pretty awesome. Again, I don't think we'd be friends, but I do tip my hat to her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of wish I went back and watched some interviews now with her.
The interviews were after like the success of the film and still in 1999. So
yeah,
I just think it was probably like she was in the interview. She was saying like how she has like a staff now, like whereas before she had like an agent, but now she has an agent and a manager and a lawyer and like an assistant and all this stuff. And I was like, oh girl, yeah, you're confused and feeling yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe I would be friends with her. I don't know, but
But she did step out of the industry, so maybe she kind of realized it. Because I got interested in Heather after rewatching this. I just wanted to, because I had checked the IMDb and I was like, oh, dude, I think she's like in pre-production for something now, but prior to that, she hadn't really done anything in years.
Mm-hmm. I think it was probably hard to be cast, like.
Yes.
What were you in? You're like, oh, the Blair Witch Project. And they're like, not really my type of thing. Like, we're doing a cop show or, we're doing like a rom-com.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It seems like a role that you would get insanely typecast for, even though it was like one of a kind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So she went on, she got into medical marijuana and growing medical marijuana. She came out with a book, kind of like an autobiographical book called Grow Girl, How My Life After the Blair Witch Project Went to Pot. And I was like, that's kind of neat. Like, that's cool.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah. And so actually some of it was available to look at online. So I kind of got caught up in reading the pages I could read of that. And so she talked about some really cool things, and I'm going to kind of run through them if that's cool with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She was saying in her book that the marketing worked so well for Blair Witch that her parents were receiving sympathy cards.
Yeah.
Which, is very interesting. She said she quotes in her book, or she says in her book, it wasn't until ticket sales plateaued that the three of us, Michael Williams, Joshua Leonard, and I, were resurrected. Which is, as you said, she did interviews like a little later after the movie kind of fizzled out a bit. There is like this little passage in her book that I did want to read, and it's a little long, but I thought this is kind of why I started to empathize with her, and I found it a bit moving. So
okay,
it's long, so bear with me. Okay, so this is from Heather's book, Grow Girl, the girl from the Blair Witch Project. This section's called. One vivid night, I left an interview and there was a crowd of people waiting with stuff that they wanted me to sign, mostly 8x10s of me looking happier. I signed for a few minutes, but it was after midnight and I just wanted to go home. The folks who were waiting didn't like this. The publicist ushered me into her car. They followed. She was trying to lose them but couldn't. We drove past billboards with my face on them. This went on for about 30 minutes. We pulled over and tried to wait them out, see if they'd pass. They waited about 100 yards behind us. We continued the circle. They continued to follow. After an hour, we found the West Hollywood Sheriff's Station, and they gave us an escort. When I arrived at my apartment, Waclaw, it's W-A-C-L-A-W. It's her boyfriend's name. Waclaw?
Oh.
Waclaw? Okay. When I arrived at my apartment, Waclaw was stoned on the couch watching TV. He once worked at a Successories, peddling pictures of bald eagles, illustrating such go-getterisms as your attitude determines your altitude from a kiosk in the New Jersey Mall. But that was a long time ago. When we met, he was a square-jawed, Slavically accented director of photography. His primary occupation at this point, 4 years into our relationship, was stoner. He used pot to open himself up and never managed to bridge his own gap. I hated pot for letting him believe that he was present. I loved it for the way it let him be touched. I turned the deadbolt and bawled. I bawled so hard I couldn't breathe. That was when the commercial for the movie came on. I bawled harder, and Waclaw, glassy-eyed, said, I knew this would ruin us, but held me anyway, not hugging so much as tethering, the way a sandbag tethers a hot air balloon. There's this part toward the end of the movie where I'm hyperventilating and snot is dripping out of my nose because my character thinks she's going to die. It was part of the commercial. It echoed in our living room, and each stabbing inhale ricocheted around the apartment. The sobs on the TV matched exactly the sobs I choked live. My dream, it could be said, had come true. Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah. It paints an interesting picture of, the experience and kind of like this be careful what you wish for, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Shit.
Yeah. There's some other cool things that she talks about here that I found interesting too. So this kind of a similar vein. This kind of made my eyes a little wet here. This one too. I'm sure somewhere on the cover of this book will be the words "The Blair Witch Project," and believe me, I will have tried to prevent that. There's no me without it for any but the people that I love, and even with them, it takes a while. Right? Another interesting thing is she used after what she calls the Great Purge, which was ditching all of her Blair Witch stuff and memorabilia and kind of like leaving that behind. She calls that her Great Purge. She said most of her decision making came from I Ching, which is so interesting. She says, since the Great Purge, this is almost exclusively how I made decisions. The I Ching. Ancient Chinese divination, sure, but basically a coin toss. So I thought that was really, really fun too.
Okay, maybe I'm changing my mind about her.
I think I might actually end up getting the book and reading it because it was very interesting. It was cool. Anyway, she meets a dude and he gets her going with weed and they start growing medical marijuana and that becomes her life. But those really pulled at me, especially that whole thing with the dream coming true. I was just like, ooh.
Yeah. Also, I like the idea that her useless boyfriend thinks that her success in the movie is what's souring their relationship.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. One kind of avenue that I did look into, which was interesting because now that I kind of remember it vaguely, which is the Curse of the Blair Witch. Do you remember the Curse of the Blair Witch?
That was like the trailery sort of thing on like sci-fi or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a documentary, I guess it was a mockumentary, but they were it was leaning into making it seem more real.
Mm-hmm. It was talking about more about the actual myth of the Blair Witch and like the things that happened in the town and stuff, right? It was more,
And do you remember? I remember the cover and stuff at Blockbuster. It was like kind of like a medium shot of heather and like some stuff in the background, but it was like kind of like a colorful overlay. And it was just like the Curse of the Blair Witch. I recognized the box immediately when I saw the picture online.
Yeah, and I feel like I remember seeing it on TV. I think, but like I didn't watch it, and I tried to find it to watch it before we did this, and I had like no luck.
I found it on Vimeo of all places.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you the link.
Hipper than me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was hard to find. I don't even know if you could find it anymore, like produced anywhere.
Because that like just goes into like, first of all, it's cool. It's a really cool idea to like, we're gonna do like basically like a short film before our film to just like build up all of the rad stuff that we had to do to make this film, but don't really tell you. You know, it's like it's a chance for them to like get everything out, but without sacrificing anything. You know, like
absolutely,
it's really cool. So I did want to see it. So yeah, if you send me that link, that'd be awesome.
I will for sure. It was the only place I could find it. It was nowhere to be found. It was interesting because I watched it, and I don't know that I watched it. Like, I know you mentioned that you think you might have watched it.
I feel like I probably saw part of it or something, or...
I don't think that I did. I remembered the movie box, but that was it. But actually, Pelly, the director of Paranormal Activity, said this about The Curse of the Blair Witch, which was... It was the story of a serial killer, and it was extremely well done. They created this immersive world that if you had the time and wanted to go into it, it would help you with the suspension of disbelief. And I found that's kind of what it did. It was like the Blair Witch Project plus Curse of the Blair Witch kind of gave you like an experience as opposed to just a movie watching kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it actually gave you the name of the witch, which was Ellie Kedward, which I don't think they say in the movie. I don't think so, but all that stuff I think was available on the website, the Blair Witch website. Oh, you're probably right.
I think they have, because it's still up now. The website still exists. I think it's like, it's been updated and styled like a little bit nicer. But they have like a section that's all the mythology, and it's broken down from February 1785 to October 16th, 1997. And it has all of the names and what happened and all of that awesome stuff.
Well, now I feel kind of dumb taking notes on the movie.
No.
If it's all on the website.
But no, I will say Ellie Kedward is her, it says several children accuse Ellie Kedward of luring them into her home to draw blood from them. Kedward is found guilty of witchcraft, banished from the village during a particularly harsh winter, and presumed dead.
Very interesting.
Yeah, again, just...
Yeah. That speaks on something I want to talk about in a little bit here, that particularly harsh winter that you just said. But I did want to bring up this parallel because I'm me. One thing that kept coming to mind when I was watching The Curse of the Blair Witch, like in prep for talking about the Blair Witch Project, was it reminded me of something I couldn't put my finger on until halfway through the movie, which was, this is Derry, Maine. It's Derry, Maine.
Yeah.
And it 100%, it just is. I pulled a few reasons why that, like, I made note of.
Yes, please.
But tell me what you think. Okay. So they say in the movie, The Curse of the Blair Witch, that the trees and animals do her bidding, which they do because, you know, the trees get the kids lost and all the things. Mm-hmm. Pennywise controls people. So they both kind of have this puppeteer thing going on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 2. There's marked events that happen in a pattern of specific years. For the Blair Witch, it was approximately 60 years. Pennywise, 27, right? 27. Mm-hmm. Okay. 3. The evil forces seem to favor children. Killing and eating children. I don't know if... Yes. I don't think that Ellie Kedward eats children, but the killing of children.
Killing them.
And then last, there is a connection to a brook or stream within a wooded area. So in Curse of the Blair Witch, it was the Blair Woods. There's a girl that drowns in the stream, and then it gets all weird and black, tar-like almost, and has all those stick people floating.
Yep.
And of course, in it, Pennywise has the Barrens, where the kids hang out. So to me, that was just a little too many things in common for that not to probably have been a key inspirational.
It's probably a factor, and it's also in the New England area, and like, it's like, it just goes like, I think there's a lot of connection with that as well, to just like old stories, old hauntings, old lore and folklore and stuff in like the New England area, and like even like the Atlantic Canada. It's the oldest settled like colonial settlement area, so like people have been doing weird shit here for a long time. So there's just like a lot of stories and a lot of hearsay and a lot of stuff, you know? So
yeah
I like that.
Yeah. And this idea of just like compiling all these random moments in history to find a pattern, to me, I love stuff like that.
This is the stuff that, like, when I was younger, I thought was happening in my neighborhood and shit. And it wasn't. But I would go out every day on my bike and I'd be like, look at these leaves and these patterns. It's just leaves in a pattern. But in my head, I was like, I'd have notebooks. I'd carry notebooks and I'd, like, write stuff down. That's why, like, when I was, like, I really wanted to be on Erie, Indiana. I really wanted to be in a gang, cool dude gang, fucking solving shit. But I have to tip my hat. I really love the mythology, like building and architecture of it, that they took a lot of energy and time to do this, and I think it's really fun.
Yeah. It's so it's really fun. Great. It's kind of like going back to the LARPing thing. It almost feels like we're all part of this game and like the mystery. Oh, I actually had one more point on another page, which was a comparison, which is the idea that the townspeople understand and are aware of more than they are letting on.
Ooh.
Which happens in both. Yeah.
I actually, I think them interviewing the town people was one of the best parts of the movie, because it acted like a documentary would, you interview people from the area, get some local information, but it also worked really well in the cinematic way of the soft opening of letting you have some information and some context, but not completely oversharing and without making it too cheesy by making it too scary and stuff.
Yeah.
I really like that they just used the quote found footage unquote. I think that led to a really nice subtle start to the film.
Me too.
I have to say, some of my favorite parts were the interviews. When that little girl picks her nose and eats it, precious. Precious. It was right away. I was like, oh, that's just there. I was telling Justin today, I was like, imagine being that girl now.
I know.
Where you're yeah, I was in the Blair Witch Project, and it's just eating my snot, though, forever and always.
Oh my God. Oh, timeless.
But I love that, and I love there was the old man that just was I don't believe in anything, I'm a religious person, and that was it. And then the two guys fishing,
they were great. I like the two guys fishing.
Lovely. I just I thought it really it added a lot to the movie. I don't think it would have been as good. I don't think I would have cared as much or believed as much if that wasn't the case. And also it leads to a lot of the questions later on where they're they don't know entirely what's happening to them, and they think that because they interviewed the town people, therefore making them aware that they were going into the woods, that they could have been the ones with them.
Yeah.
Which again, I thought was cool.
Yeah. So. No, I did too. It leaves it holds a lot of mystery, and I do think it was important too. I agree with you to have the town people there doing the interviews, because world building is key. I have a part here on the locations. Did you dig into the locations at all? Anything about
where they actually filmed?
Or just anything about Blair or Burkittsville or...
Well, I read what was on their webpage.
Well, I didn't read the webpage, so you go ahead and you tell me what was on the webpage.
No, I'm just all I know is just that I guess at one point it was the township of Blair, located in north central Maryland, 2 hours from Washington, D.C. And then after Ellie Kedward did the potential weird blood asking of kids and all of that stuff, they changed it to Burkittsville in 1824. Oh, sorry. No, I guess everyone left because by midwinter, all of Kedward's accusers, along with half of the town's children, vanished. Fearing a curse, the townspeople flee Blair and vow never to utter Ellie Kedward's name again.
Right.
And then I guess later Burkittsville was found on the same site.
Right. Yes. That was actually, I just want to see if I can find it here real quick. I'm probably not going to be able to. I can't remember because it's been, I finished it a while ago, so I can't remember exactly, but that was another thing. Burkittsville was named after somebody Burkitt to have a railway put in or something.
Okay.
And so it was an infusion of industry at the time, and that was another parallel to Derry, which actually was an industrious town. For something to do with the water. I just can't remember what the industry was. It wasn't logging, but it was something like that. I'm sure somebody listening to this is going to be yelling and being it was obviously this, you idiot. I can't remember.
Then email us.
Then email us. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so and then it was the fictional town of Blair. Oh, there's a Thrillist article which I'll link in the show notes, but it said that they actually only shot in Burkittsville. It only appears in the film twice. Mm-hmm. The Welcome to Burkittsville sign, and then the cemetery, and everything else was shot elsewhere, which I thought was kind of interesting.
And that kind of is also rad because that is a real town. I think that's also a really cool choice that they were no, let's just find a real place that has woods around it. And
that's the thing about
there
it.
There you
go.
go.
The town did not think it was so cool. The town
Probably
had
not.
huge issues with this. you know, people just like converging on it, and like somebody stole the original Welcome to Burkittsville sign after the movie came out, just as like, I guess, memorabilia. The Thrillist article, it says in the Thrillist article about this, the city put its 2 police deputies on overtime to patrol the cemetery and issued a notification to all residents. After the viewing of the movie, people may want to come out and see what Burkittsville is really like. We ask that you be cautious and reinforce safety precautions within your family. In turn, the residents started locking their front doors for the first time ever.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Poor dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was like, there were some people that were like really pissed about it. Like a good majority of people were very pissed, like actual Burkittsville citizens. But then some people wanted to capitalize on it. People started selling rocks from Burkittsville for like $5 a pop.
Yeah. Like if I had a diner, I'd have a Blair Witch burger. You goddamn right I would.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Serve it in a basket made of sticks. Come on.
You've thought about this before. I love it.
No problem.
It's fine.
And just like have swamp soda. That's like, come on. You could just totally just cha-ching.
I just had my first swamp soda in probably 15 years the other day.
Really?
I can't express the joy. It was amazing. It tasted just like how I remember.
Like question marks and sugar.
Delicious question marks and sugar.
Oh my God. I just love that was a thing, like when we were kids at a party. You were just like, you want some soda? I want all the soda in one glass.
Yes.
Such greedy dirtbags.
It's such a very specific taste, though, when you get like the right mix. Like for me, it's always like Pepsi, root beer, orange soda, Sprite. Come on, there's got to be a couple I'm forgetting.
I've done a lot with, because growing up, my brother liked Mountain Dew, so I'd always have like a splash of Mountain Dew in there.
Mountain Dew, yeah, it's almost like a garnish.
Yeah, it's the parsley of the drink.
It's the parsley of the drink. Yes.
Class it up with some Mountain Dew.
It's got some notes. Yeah, I love it.
Orange for sure was always like a big one.
You couldn't do it without orange, yeah.
No, I feel like that had the right flavor combo, but also it made it the right color too, you know?
Yes. It gave it that extra swamp quality.
Yeah, it really made it opaque and not appealing.
But extraordinarily delicious.
Just down that.
Yeah.
Well, it's making me want all of the soda.
Yeah.
Good for you. I'm glad that you got some swamp bog water in you.
Yeah, for sure. Good like old times. Also, the old house that belonged to Rustin Parr, and also potentially also the Blair Witch. I wasn't really clear on who owned the house, if it was just the hermit.
I think it was supposed to be his, but again, because like I did not know this until I started doing research. There was another Blair Witch movie that came out in 2016.
Yes, there was. I watched that one. Yeah.
I did not, because I didn't know it existed until I was doing research for this podcast. But they, I guess, explore more of like the fact that the woods isn't just like cursed and being controlled by a witch, but I guess more it plays with time more.
Yeah.
It's more of like a
weird... 2016 felt like a lifetime ago, but I do vaguely remember something about like there being a time loop or something.
Yeah, so they explore that more in the 2016 movie, which there's a reference or something in the movie or the curse of or something that his house was burnt to the ground, but in the movie it's not burnt to the ground. So they're like,
it's at a different time or something. I see.
Yeah. So that they got caught, they went back to a different time to find the house. Right. Oh, that's what it was. They found the footage in a burnt down house. Right. They found the found footage. So
yes, that's true.
They're like, how does that work? So that was one of the theories based, I think, since the new one came out.
Yeah.
Or
I think you're right.
I don't know.
It's interesting too because the new one also, I remember, plays on putting some more importance on the stick people. There's this really, really intense scene where they find it. One of the girls has like purple hair or something. I can't remember exactly. And they find one of the stick people, and they're like not very big. They're like maybe the size of your hand in that movie. And it has her purple hair on it. And so much like Josh freaking out about the Jello that's blue on his pack.
Yeah.
The doll has, or the stick figure has some of her purple hair.
Yeah.
And she starts freaking out. She's like, why does the doll have my hair? Why does the doll have my hair? And somebody snaps the doll in two. And she snaps backwards in real life, and her spine breaks and she dies. It's really, really intense and shocking, right? Like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. That was the coolest part of that movie, I thought. Yeah.
There's something that was brought up. Okay, so when they are in the woods, okay, I'm trying to remember. They go to the cemetery and then they go into the woods to the locations that Heather scouted out, which is one was Coffin Rock and two was...
another cemetery. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what she was saying. And so when they got to it, it was just like the rocks and like piles of rocks, right?
Yes. I was confused by that too, because I agree with you. When they got to those piles of rocks, it felt like they found the quote cemetery. So it didn't really look like a cemetery, but there was piles of rocks, and I think that is what they were looking for.
Yeah, so there were like 7 piles of rocks, which I thought represent the 7 kids that he killed.
That would make sense. Yeah.
I thought, but then when you think about it, it was like, I guess maybe it was that the witch kind of like telling him to do it or something, because like she just leaves piles of rocks and shit around.
Right.
You know, because like they find piles of rocks outside. They find 3 piles of rocks outside of their tent.
You know
when they wake up.
Yeah, they do. You're right. I never thought about that. Yes, the piles of rocks, the number of the piles of rocks is equivalent to the number of like victims, quote.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's really smart. I never even picked up on that, but you're right. They find the 7 piles of rocks for the children, and then they have 3 piles of rocks around their campsite for them. That's really cool.
Which is like, I kind of like, I was like, I hope that's what it is. But then it made me be like, how did they know to go there and what? I felt like maybe I missed something where I was like, is this their end? Their end result was to get to here?
Yeah. I mean, that's...
Question mark?
Yeah, I think it was. I think that was the cemetery, and I think that was the end result, and I think they just kind of pieced after because they were like, too much crazy stuff is happening now.
I did like the build-up of how everything got creepy and weird.
Oh, me too. I thought it was really well done. Yeah, very, very, just building on something very subtle until eventually it's not.
Completely dismissive too, and that was another thing that maybe like I put myself in Heather's position a lot easier than some people would, because I feel like, because I can read a map and sometimes I do stuff that some people are like, you don't know how to do that, or like, or I have that perception that people would treat me that way, like make it hard to like but also like that whole situation with her and the map. So she thinks she lost the map, but she finds out later that not only did Mike know where the map was and he got rid of it, but Josh also knew that.
Serious gaslighting. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you were lost in the woods. You're the only one that like was capable of doing anything, navigating in it or anything. These 2 people completely put everyone in danger, lied to you about it, and then with you.
Yeah.
And then like I would not be comfortable at all in any way, shape, or form. Like at that point, I'd be done. I'd just like...
Yeah, totally.
Oh, sorry. When is the witching hour?
What do you mean?
Do you know how it's like, everyone always says like, oh, it's the witching hour. There's
I thought they were just talking about
like
3 a.m. Let's Google it.
Yeah, okay, because they say, but the reason I brought it up is because there's the first night that sounds start happening or something. One of the nights where like it starts to get real and spooky was, they're like, oh, hopefully it's like getting light soon. Like maybe it's morning, maybe it's 5, and she says it's 3 in the morning.
3 in the morning, because that
was
the
witching hour?
I thought the reason I thought the witching hour was a thing was because it was 3 a.m. and I think it was because that was supposed to be some sort of bastardized inverse of 3 p.m., which has to do with like when Christians believe Jesus died or something. It was like the opposite, something like that. I'm probably butchering that logic, but I just googled it, and Wikipedia says that in folklore, the witching hour or the devil's hour is a time of night typically between 12 and 4 a.m. that's associated with supernatural events.
Okay, so just the night time.
Just general night.
Just the night time?
The cloak of darkness. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so that would still fall into the witching hour then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's actually a great segue to the real witchcraft.
Yeah. Blue jelly shit all over Josh's stuff, right?
Happens to everyone.
Right before they're taken.
So, of course, there's not really real witchcraft in this movie, but that did not stop me from finding some.
Good on you.
Okay, so, and some of this, of course, I'm going to preface this by saying it comes also from The Curse of the Blair Witch, just because they give you a little bit more information and the stuff, right? So, Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch. So, they say that her name was formed from Edward Kelly, who's a real dude. He was a spirit medium and an alchemist in the 16th century. He was pals with John Dee, who was a mathematician and an occultist. And for a time, he was John Dee's scryer, which he did with quartz crystal. And apparently he would scry with this quartz crystal, and angels would come and give them information. It's I found some info on the two of them on the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. Mm-hmm. So I'll link that in the show notes. But whenever I saw information about Edward Kelly, which of course is how Ellie Kedward gets her name, and when you say them together, it's very obvious. All I could think of was you know that meme where it's the girl in the car and she's like, "Get in, loser, we're doing magic," or it's I just pictured those two dudes just in that meme. So that was funny. So that was kind of a real portion because they were real people. But this is the thing I was going to bring up earlier, or that I made note of earlier when you said the thing about the particularly harsh winter where the Blair Witch died. I did find, and I found this separately from any sort of information on the Blair Witch. I feel like it was probably an inspiration for the Blair Witch, but I didn't find anything about them being related, which is very interesting. So in Maryland, where the Blair Witch movie takes place, there was a woman named Moll Dyer, Moll Dyer, whose real name I believe was Mary Dyer, from St. Mary's County, Maryland. And she died in a particularly harsh winter in 1697. Ooh. So I'm going to quote here from a book that was written about her by, it was called Moll Dyer and Other Witch Takes from Southern Maryland by Lynn J. Buonviri. I'm probably butchering that name. Anyway, she says, she was an elderly spinster who practiced some strange customs that were foreign to the other residents of the county. So I read in an article, and I think it was a New York Times. Is it New York Times? Oh, no. Yeah. New York Times article that the stuff that she did was kind of very, herbal remedies, that sort of thing.
Oh, normal human stuff?
Normal human stuff.
Gotcha.
And so they were kind of weirded out by her, but they were too scared to the citizens were too scared to individually go up to her and be like, "Hey, you need to get out because we're afraid of you." So they decided, because they thought that she would, curse them,
put stinging nettle all over them,
right? So they didn't want to go individually to talk to her, so instead they converged on her house after, in this harsh winter, where there was a lot of influenza death and a lot of the crops hadn't grown previously, so they were kind of blaming her for that too, which doesn't this smell like Salem witch trials, by the way?
Yeah.
So they converged on her home and set it on fire instead, because I guess they figured they're not going there individually, they can go there together, and she can't curse them all. And so she escaped and she fled into the woods, but her body was found frozen to death days later. So because of the way she was frozen, which was on a rock, one arm in the air and one resting on this kind of obscure large rock, it was believed that she died cursing the local people, and that the rock was a symbol, if not a conduit, of the curse. So that was real.
I love that so much. Continue.
Right. The rock is real. You can find pictures of it on the internet. Somebody went and found it, like not recently, like it's been a part of the history there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a thing. And apparently her hand and knee print are in the rock, and they think it's cursed.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
So how can you hear that and then tell me that like that's got to have been an influence for Blair Witch Project?
Totally.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
But I am going to just throw it out there too, that like the directors were, I'll just say this. They didn't know that Cannibal Holocaust existed.
Really?
Yeah. I forget which one. Just a second, I'll see. It was Eduardo Sanchez.
Okay.
That admitted that like him and Daniel had never heard of or seen Cannibal Holocaust, and he said that in an interview that like if they had, they never would have made this movie, because he was like, it's like the exact same thing, we never would have done it. So that maybe
is very fascinating.
Yeah, so maybe there's just like this like weird coincidence sort of thing. Maybe they never heard that before, but like somehow made a movie very similar.
And to be fair, I mean, Mal Dyer died in, what did I say it was? 1697.
Yeah.
So you think about when the Salem witch trials were gearing up, that was 1692. I mean, yeah, it's basically the same window. That's like just years apart, really. Which brings me to my next thing, which is, of course, I feel like they had to have pulled from Salem witch trials. I mean, the story of like, you know, the hag and, you know, demonizing these women, but I'm not going to get into that, because if you really want to know about the Salem witch trials, you can listen to episode 5 of the podcast, or Halloween double feature, where we do talk about it.
Yeah, because like there has to be like some inspiration from actual events that made its way in, but I guess like I think it was just 35 pages that they had. It was just like, I think there was like, it was just a handful. It was just the directors, was it Daniel and Eduardo, that wrote the screenplay?
Yeah, Daniel Myrick. Is that how you say his name? Daniel Myrick? And Eduardo Myrick? Sanchez.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Okay, so they had it very loose. It was just 35-page sort of like
a treatment almost or something.
Yeah, so... But thinking about it, like, they obviously must have done research and had an idea. I mean, they have a whole website of the mythology behind it. So, like, they probably did a lot of digging and reading and research and stuff, and just made, like, a infusion or something. Like, a feeling or a vibe. And, like...
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's probably what happened. Because when I started learning about Mal Dyer, I was just like, this seems like the same thing.
Well, but and then also, I guess maybe not to pigeonhole themselves, or like to have a couple of different angles. Like they have, okay, so there is the story of Ellie Kedward, and then half of the town's children vanishing. Then the townspeople left, and then Blair existed. Burkittsville was founded. Was it? The young girl gets pulled into the Tappy East Creek. You mentioned that earlier. And then, like, the creek gets clogged with oily bundles of sticks. And then 8-year-old Robin Weaver is reported missing, and search parties are dispatched, although Weaver returns. One of the search parties does not. Their bodies are found weeks later at Coffin Rock, tied together at the arms and legs and completely disemboweled.
Yes.
Starting with Emily Hollins, a total of 7 children are abducted from the area surrounding the Burkittsville, Maryland, and then that's the whole Ruston Park, killing them all. And yeah, so like they just kind of build a bunch of weird different directions, I guess.
Yeah.
From totally. Like one sort of inspiration point, they're like, well, it could be, we can go in any direction.
You know, yes, I agree with that. And they probably did pull from a lot of different things. And I gotta just reiterate, and I know this is probably annoying. I know, like, the Stephen King fan in me is, like, one of the most annoying facets of my personality. Like,
nope, I disagree. Disagree heartily.
But, like, there's just so many similarities with Derry and it. Mm-hmm. In this book, and that's exactly it. It's like even what you just said is like all these facets, like even with the hermit, it's like there's
Yeah.
other horrendous things going on besides the supernatural entity itself.
Yeah.
That are just crazy and terrifying, but like also potentially maybe also influenced by the entity. I don't know. Just so much is
And see, that's the thing. I think they probably would have had to dig deep into a lot of folklore and a lot of stories and a lot of all of that, but also taking inspiration, like potentially from like Stephen King and other great storytellers and stuff. Because if you think about it, they're basically going into, it was like what, an 8-day like improv challenge.
Yeah.
You know, so they had to make sure that they had enough resources and stuff in their back pockets to make sure that the 3 people had enough to do to push their actions in a direction that made sense for the outcome that they wanted. You know, like it makes sense. They probably had to do a lot of nerding out.
Yeah, finding their motivation and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's actually funny, like the Stephen King angle too, because it also has a lot of similarities to The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, which is a book by Stephen King that I read in high school, and it had an English project where I ended up doing like a video of it, like I had to film the movie.
Okay.
And so I read the book first, and I remember one of the most it was about a girl who loved Tom Gordon. She was like a baseball fan, and she gets lost in the woods, and there's like a supernatural like monster that's stalking her. And one of the most chilling things in that book was the young girl, one night to sleep comfortably, she like compiles like this small pile of leaves that she can sleep on. It's like kind of just a little bit bigger than the size of her body, kind of like a makeshift bed.
Mm-hmm.
And when she wakes up in the morning, she wakes up and there's a massive compiled like body of leaves beside hers, where something probably also made a bed that was much larger than her. Terrifying.
Okay, because I don't have any context. I'm like, aww.
It's very precious, but also terrifying, right? Because like the whole time yeah. It's chilling, but I also see your point. It is also a little cute.
I guess like, oh, I'm gonna just cuddle up next to you, make a little bed.
Yeah,
I like that though.
Yeah. Fun fact, played Tom Gordon, the baseball player. That movie that I recorded.
I hope you have that.
I wish I did. Probably not.
Oh yeah, you went through your minimalist phase. That's what I was going to say. I can't do a minimalist phase. I just can't.
I'm a maximalist, and that's what I learned from my minimalist phase.
And I fucking love it. I love having outrageous pattern and shit everywhere and weird stuff. And like, I love it.
Same.
And I really I'm one of those people that is like, you can decorate with anything. Like I have turkey feet hanging off my wall in my kitchen, right beside a bunch of portraits of Jesus and Mary. And like bundles of herbs.
Love it.
Welcome to my kitchen.
That's awesome. I love it. I've loved your style since I walked into it in your house. The house that I took a picture of and sent you to make sure I was going to the right house.
Correct. Oh, I was going to say one thing. I think I just remembered that apparently no one understood the ending and didn't like the ending and thought it was weird.
It makes perfect sense. I don't understand that argument.
See, but the thing is, like, again, I was reading a bunch of crap all over the place and listening to a bunch of people. So at one point I read that when they had Mike facing in the corner and people didn't understand it and stuff, they filmed different endings and none of them felt the same. None of them felt right. So they went back and did more interviews with town folk and built in the story of the kids facing, like, what's his name? Rustin Parr.
Oh, Rustin Parr, the serial killer. Yeah.
Yeah, so made it so that when he was killing the children, he brought them down to the basement 2 at a time and put one in the corner, looking in the corner. So there is a chance that I guess that wasn't in originally.
Like the cut we saw?
Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but this is something I've been I gathered that there's a chance that was added later to explain the way the ending went.
Okay. That might make no. You know what? You might be onto something because now I'm starting because I watched Curse of the Blair Witch.
Yes.
Supplementary to this, Rustin Parr is a hermit that lives in the Blair Witch woods who was saying that he was like essentially haunted by Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch, telling him to kill children, kind of following suit of the stories of what she had done to children. So maybe if people hadn't watched, maybe that's just in Curse of the Blair Witch, and if you didn't watch Curse of the Blair Witch, you wouldn't know the Rustin Parr angle, which would make Mike facing in the corner kind of weird. An obscure, weird ending.
Yeah, so like if they put, and again, I don't know what to believe because it's been so many years since this movie came out and everybody has like uncovered stuff and everything, but I think that maybe that they added more info about that, and specifically the facing in the corner, to make sense of the ending.
Yeah,
potentially.
Because when you know that Rustin Parr put a kid in the corner facing the wall to murder the other kid, it makes the ending of the Blair Witch Project completely make sense, completely terrifying, and completely supernatural because Rustin Parr is dead, I think, or at the very least not around.
Oh, yeah, because it was 1943 or something when he did that, and he's an old referred to as the old hermit. So.
Oh, and I think they hung him. I think he was hung for the murders of those children. Eventually.
Yeah, he is quickly convicted and hanged.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
so the implication is the witch is responsible for both Rustin Parr's haunting.
Yes.
Indirectly, the murder of the 7 children he killed, and also responsible for the kind of mirrored murder of Mike and and
so it's like
Heather.
Because that was something that was bothering me, because a lot of the things that I read about like the original, like the first viewings, were that people didn't understand the ending, and I was like, how do you not understand the ending? They say it in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and it's not that beefy of a movie. What is it, like 82 minutes? It's not that big of a trek, you know? Part of me is like, people would forget that, I guess. I don't think most people would forget a super creepy detail about killing kids 2 at a time.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think that would stick in your head for a little bit.
But I'm with you. I thought the ending was clear and perfect. Chef's kiss. Yeah.
It's so good.
You're totally right. Yeah. Perfect ending. And terrifying because it's like this beautiful. Did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
Oh, I think just like the first season.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Okay. They do it so well too. It's like this whole idea of like telling or having all the chips fall into place in a very like otherwise complicated story with one visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they do it really well in this aspect of Breaking Bad where it's Jesse and Walter. It's been so long since I saw that, so I'm just hoping I'm getting their names right.
Yeah.
And Jesse's girlfriend's son gets poisoned, and Walter tries to tell him it's a poisoned cigarette that was in Jesse's pack, right?
Okay.
And so the whole movie's them searching for the poisoned cigarette to make sure, and like Jesse feeling guilty and like all this stuff, right? I can't remember actually what happens to the kid because of that, but it's very edge of your seat, like nerve-wracking. They're trying to figure it out, and the whole time Walter's like, like this cigarette, like I can't believe you lost it, like the kid obviously got it and now it's your fault, he's like, and he might die. And then somewhere along the line, they find the hospital finds out that the kid was poisoned. The poison in the kid was from the plant lily of the valley, like the flower.
Yeah.
And then the very end shot of that episode is Walter's backyard by his pool, and there's just a lily of the valley plant growing.
Wah, wah.
It's crazy. Just like chills, right? Because it's like it tells you everything you need to know in one shot. And I feel like that's what the Blair Witch Project did so well. You get that end shot with Mike facing the wall, and you just everything was real. Mm-hmm. There's a witch in the woods.
Yeah.
And they're dead.
Well, it's like, okay, how did people not get this? There's people that have like theories about like why the ending was what it was. One of them is that Josh and Mike hated Heather so much that they set this up to murder her. And I'm like, dudes, just because all that sounds like to me is just like a dude in a basement hating her, watching it and being like, you're the worst. Oh, she's so bossy. And it's like, yeah, this is her project. She's the director. Like, this is her job, you assholes. But like, obviously getting rubbed the wrong way because like a strong woman's like telling these guys what to do. And they're like, oh, I know what happened.
I get it.
They just moited her. Like, no.
They had enough of her shit.
It's just like, this isn't no. I'm glad that we're on the same page. I'm glad that you also like and understand and give thumbs up to the ending.
Absolutely.
Because, like, it's so good.
Yes.
And people are the worst. Sorry, it's like, this doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna completely rewrite the whole narrative.
No, I thought it was the perfect way to finish that film. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Because, like, I guess when the reshoots that they did, they had Mike in the corner, like, crucified or, like, hanged and, like, all this shit where it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like,
it doesn't make any sense, but now that you say that, I feel like I saw, like, a behind-the-scenes shot of, like, Mike posing, like, in some weird, like, tree thing in the basement with, like, a crew member. So that might have been an alternative ending that they shot.
Probably. I think they shot, like, I don't know, like 4 of them or something.
Right.
And, like, they did test screenings and nobody liked them.
Right.
So, because what was it? Artisan bought the movie? Yeah, so they were, like, nervous that they didn't, the ending wasn't clear enough. So they filmed all this stuff and then no one liked it, so they were like, I guess we'll just like have faith that the directors know what they're doing, because what was it? It was like 80% of the people or 90% of the people that watched the movie said that they did not understand the ending, but then they also said that they were terrified. So they were like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's fine. You're making a horror movie. You want the end result to be, like, terrifyingly good.
Yes.
The end. Like, and again, to go, like, back to what we were talking about, the unknown, I feel like, is way more terrifying.
For sure it is. It is. Because, like we were saying, like, you program your deepest fear into that. I mean, really, it's a genius idea, because the director and the writer only have to make one movie, but really they've made millions of movies.
Yeah, and they're letting us do the heavy lifting. Like, again, like, they let their cast film the movie. They're letting us do the story. Like, we're just writing it for them.
Yeah.
It's pretty genius if you think about it.
Totally genius. Yes.
I think that this is like, even though a lot has changed since 1999. I think you do have to, like, this movie will always, like, be special, you know, like, it was at the height of, like, the indie darling moment, you know, where like the tiny little nothing turns into the Oscar worthy thing. And,
100%.
Yeah. So I don't know if Cannes is not, it wasn't Cannes, it was Sundance, right? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, they premiered at Sundance, I think, with a lot of missing persons posters as part of the marketing. Yeah.
Clever.
But
I don't know if Sundance is the same now as then. I don't think if it isn't, I don't think it ever will be the same. I think this was like such a very, like, specific thing that can only happen. It could only happen in 1999.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
It was set up, it had this set up for the actual, like, production and everything. Like, it was timed right. It was just, like, meant to happen, and it will never happen again. This will never happen again.
Absolutely not. It won't.
Yeah. So it is a special little treasure gem for that reason. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're totally right. It's like one of those things that only works once.
Yeah,
exactly. Then people get onto it. Yeah.
And I think that's probably why I have, like, such, like, a negative thought about other found footage stuff, because I'm like, dude, this can't be, like, done again. Just like forget about it.
Check out The Conspiracy Man. I think it is on Tubi, and it is my kind of terror.
Okay, I'll give it a go.
That's it for us this slumber party. Thank you, as always, for gifting us your ears, mind, and hopefully some nostalgic feels for just a little while. If you have any movie show topic suggestions or questions, just email us at thecovenslumberparty@gmail.com. Please email us.
Please.
Please. As for us, you can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Podcasts. We will be here next month with more witchy slumber party goodness, and hopefully you will be too. No initiation required, but next time you bring the tarot and the Jones soda.
Jones soda.
Jones soda, right?
That's some 90s shit right there. Blue Notes.
Blue Notes sold it? Yeah, they had the Jones soda cooler.
Yeah. I just remembered in the Churro Mall that there actually used to be stores there. And like Blue Notes was like 2 or 3 stores combined.
Yeah, it was like a hip place to be.
Yeah, that's like where you would go and hang out. I feel like some people were like, I gotta be seen at Blue Notes.
Totally. And you had to pick up your Jones soda, which you always chose by label, like the picture on the label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's good soda, but I never like had a favorite because you just picked whatever the label was.
Yeah, the coolest picture.
Shit, Jones soda.
Jones soda.
I miss that. Satisfied now to just watch videos of dogs just doing stuff, or like cats falling off things because they miscalculate a jump.